There is a word that most men use incorrectly: seduce. They use it to describe something done to a woman, a set of actions performed on her, techniques deployed against her psychology, words chosen to produce specific responses, behaviors calibrated to create specific impressions, the strategic manipulation of another person's emotions toward a predetermined outcome. This is not seduction. This is the imitation of seduction by men who have never understood what seduction actually is, who have confused the surface expression of a quality with the quality itself, who have studied what seductive men appear to do and attempted to replicate the appearance without developing the thing the appearance is the expression of. Real seduction is not something you do to a woman. It is something you become in her presence, not a performance of qualities she finds attractive. The genuine expression of qualities that are actually there, not the strategic deployment of techniques designed to produce a specific response. The natural consequence of a man who has built something real inside himself, bringing that real thing into genuine contact with another human being. The seduction I am going to describe today is not a technique. It is the application of everything I have written about across this entire channel to the most specific and most direct question that the men listening to this channel most want answered. How do you actually do it? My name is Niccolo Machiavelli. I have written about presence and desire and patience and silence and seduction in the broader philosophical sense across many conversations. Today I want to give you something more specific. The actual practice. What genuine seduction looks like in the specific interactions where it operates. What the man who has built something real does in the room, in the conversation, in the specific encounters where attraction either develops or does not. Not theory. Practice. I want to begin with the most important thing I can tell you about how seduction actually works. It begins before you enter the room. Not in the sense of preparation or strategizing or deciding in advance what you are going to say or how you are going to present yourself. In the sense that what you bring into the room is the product of what you have been building outside it. And what you have been building outside it is the foundation of everything that is possible inside it. The man who enters the room with a genuine direction, a genuine body of work, a genuine sense of who he is and what he is building and why, has something before the first word is spoken that the man who enters the room without these things does not have. He has himself, completely, without performance, without the specific anxiety of a man who is trying to produce an impression rather than simply being what he is. And that completeness, that quality of being genuinely all there without any portion of his attention diverted to the management of how he is being received, is felt in the room before it is understood. I observed this across my career in Florence in every domain where genuine presence mattered. The man who arrived completely, whose full attention was available for the actual encounter rather than divided between the encounter and the monitoring of how the encounter was going, changed the quality of whatever room he entered simply by being fully in it. This is not a mystical observation. It is a practical one. The man who is fully present in an encounter is genuinely attending to what is there. He hears what is actually being said rather than what he expected to hear. He notices what is actually happening rather than what he anticipated. He responds to the actual person rather than to his model of the person. And the woman who encounters this quality of full presence experiences something that most social interaction does not provide. The experience of being actually seen. Of having someone genuinely there with her rather than performing their ness while attending primarily to themselves. That experience is the beginning of genuine seduction. Not a line. Not a technique. The simple, rare, genuinely powerful experience of being actually met by someone who is actually present. Be actually present. Not as a strategy for seeming present. Because you have built enough of a life outside the encounter that your full attention is genuinely available for the encounter itself. The first specific practice of genuine seduction is what I would call the quality of the opening. Most men open encounters with women from the wrong orientation. Their attention is on themselves, on how they are being received, on whether the impression they are making is the right one, on what to say next, on the specific anxiety of a man who has decided in advance that this specific encounter matters enormously and who is therefore approaching it with all the stiffness and self-consciousness that enormous importance produces. The man who opens from genuine curiosity about her is different from the first moment. Not the performed curiosity of a man who has read that showing interest is attractive and is now demonstrating interest as a technique. Genuine curiosity. The actual wondering about who this specific person is, what she sees, what she finds interesting, what her particular take on the specific moment you are both in actually is. This genuine curiosity produces a quality of opening that is immediately distinguishable from the performed version. The genuine question comes from actually wanting to know rather than from wanting to seem interested. And the difference between those two orientations is felt immediately by the person receiving the question. Ask a genuine question, one that you are actually curious about, not a generic opener designed to seem engaging. Something specific to her, to the moment, to what you have actually noticed that is worth being curious about. The specificity signals genuine attention. The generic signals performance. And then do something that most men in this situation cannot do. Listen to the answer. Actually receive what she says. Not while preparing your next statement. Not while monitoring whether the conversation is going well. While actually attending to what she is saying and where it is going and what it reveals about who she actually is. The man who actually listens changes the quality of the encounter from the first exchange, because he is genuinely responding to her rather than to his own performance. And being genuinely responded to by someone who is actually attending is rare enough that it is felt immediately. The second specific practice is what I would call the management of the frame. By frame I mean the underlying structure of the interaction. Who is the subject of the encounter? Whose reality is being occupied? Whose standards are setting the terms? Most men, in the presence of a woman they are attracted to, surrender the frame immediately. Their reality becomes organized around her. Their standards adjust to accommodate what they imagine she wants. Their behavior shifts in response to her signals in ways that reveal they have accepted her reality as the primary one and are operating within it rather than offering their own. This surrender is detectable. And it produces exactly the opposite of what it is intended to produce. Because the woman who encounters a man who has immediately surrendered the frame has encountered a man who has, in the specific language of the wanting system, made himself entirely available, has removed the resistance that the wanting system requires to remain engaged, has closed the gap before the gap had time to produce genuine desire. The man who maintains his frame, who brings his own reality into the encounter and occupies it genuinely rather than adjusting to accommodate hers, creates a completely different dynamic. He is genuinely himself, with his genuine perspective and his genuine standards and his genuine way of seeing things. And his reality is presented not as an imposition but as an offer. The offer of a man who has a perspective worth encountering and who invites her to encounter it rather than disappearing into hers. This does not mean being inflexible or dismissive of her perspective. Genuine seduction is not the assertion of dominance. It is the encounter of two genuine people, each bringing something real. What I am describing is the maintenance of the genuine self that makes the encounter possible. Because you cannot genuinely encounter someone who has dissolved into you. And you cannot be genuinely encountered by someone who has dissolved into themselves. Be genuinely yourself in the encounter. Bring your actual perspective. Maintain your actual standards. Occupy your actual reality. And invite her into it rather than disappearing into hers. The encounter of two genuine realities is the beginning of genuine connection. And genuine connection is what genuine seduction produces. The third specific practice is what I have described in other contexts as controlled disclosure. The man who reveals everything in the first encounter has nothing left for the second. He has resolved his own mystery before she had time to become genuinely curious about it. He has closed the loop before the loop had time to produce the wanting that the open loop generates. The man who reveals genuinely but selectively, who gives something real in each encounter while making clear through the texture of what he shares that there is more, creates the specific conditions in which genuine curiosity develops. Not the manufactured mystery of a man who is withholding strategically to create an effect. The natural consequence of a man who has more depth than any single encounter can exhaust. Whose interior life is rich enough that no single conversation accesses more than a portion of what is there. Whose genuine substance is such that the revealing of it takes time because there is genuinely much to reveal. This quality of having more than you have shown is only available to the man who has actually built more than he is showing. You cannot perform depth you do not have across multiple encounters without the performance becoming visible as performance. Build the depth first. Then allow the revealing of it to take the time it naturally takes when the depth is real. In practice, this means this. Share something genuine in each encounter. Something real about how you see things. Something true about what you have experienced or understood or been changed by. Something that opens a room rather than presenting a facade. And then let the encounter end while there are still rooms unopened. While there is still something she has sensed is there but has not yet seen. While the loop is still open enough that the mind has something to return to. Not by abruptly cutting the encounter short. By allowing it to find its natural peak and ending it there rather than continuing past the peak into the territory of diminishing return. The conversation that ends at its peak is the conversation she thinks about afterward. The conversation that ends at its exhaustion is the conversation that resolves itself and files away. And at the peak, leave something in reserve. Let the loop stay open. The fourth specific practice is what I would call the quality of genuine appreciation. The seductive man notices things, not generically, specifically, with the quality of attention that produces the observation of something that could only be observed about this specific person in this specific moment because it is the product of actually seeing her rather than the projection of a general appreciation onto whoever is present. Most flattery is generic. It could be said to almost anyone and it is therefore worth almost nothing as a signal of genuine attention. She knows, whether she acknowledges it or not, that the compliment was not produced by her specifically. It was produced by the situation, by the presence of a woman to be complimented. She happened to be the one present. The observation that could only be made about her, that reveals that she was actually seen rather than generically appreciated, carries a different weight entirely. Not because the observation is necessarily more positive than the generic compliment, because it is specific. And specificity signals genuine attention. And genuine attention, as I have argued throughout this channel, is one of the rarest and most valuable things available in human interaction. Notice something specific. Something you actually notice because you were actually attending. Something that would not have been noticeable to a man whose attention was primarily on himself rather than on her. And then name it. Not as a compliment designed to produce a response. As the honest expression of what your genuine attention produced. The woman who receives that kind of observation, the observation that could only have come from someone who was actually there with her, experiences something that most social interaction does not provide. She experiences being actually seen. And being actually seen by a man of genuine substance and genuine attention is one of the most seductive experiences available in human connection. The fifth specific practice is the one that most men find most difficult because it requires the quality that everything else in your channel has been building toward. The practice of genuine non-attachment to the outcome. The man who needs the encounter to resolve in a specific way is not fully present in the encounter. A portion of his attention is always on the outcome, on whether it is going well, on whether she is responding in the way he needs her to respond. On the specific anxiety of a man who has decided that what happens in this encounter determines something important about his worth. That divided attention is felt, and it produces in the encounter exactly the quality that genuine seduction most requires to be absent. The quality of need. The man who is genuinely non-attached to the outcome, who is genuinely interested in the encounter for what it actually is rather than for what it might produce, is fully present in it in a way that the attached man cannot be. His full attention is available for the actual encounter because no portion of it is diverted to the monitoring of whether the encounter is producing the desired outcome. And that full attention, given freely and without the distortion of need, is the most seductive quality available in any encounter. Because it communicates, without words, the thing that is most rare and most compelling in a world full of men who are performing presence while attending primarily to themselves. It communicates that he is actually there. For her. For the encounter. For what is actually happening in this specific moment between two specific people. Not for the outcome. Not for what the encounter might produce. For the encounter itself. And that quality of genuine presence, genuine interest, genuine non-attachment to the outcome, is what the woman on the receiving end of it feels as the specific experience of being genuinely encountered by a man who is genuinely worth encountering. That is real seduction. Not what he does, what he is, in the encounter with her. I want to bring everything I have described together in the most concrete terms I can. The man who actually seduces, in the genuine and durable sense of that word, is the man who does the following. He enters the encounter completely, with his full attention available because his life outside the encounter is full enough that the encounter does not need to be everything. He opens from genuine curiosity about her. He asks what he actually wants to know. He listens to the actual answer. He maintains his own frame. He brings his genuine perspective and his genuine standards and his genuine way of seeing into the encounter. He occupies his own reality and invites her into it rather than disappearing into hers. He reveals genuinely but selectively. He shares something real while making clear that there is more. He ends encounters at their peak and leaves the loop open. He notices specifically. He names what his genuine attention actually produced rather than offering the generic appreciation that signals nobody was actually there. And he is genuinely non-attached to the outcome. He is in the encounter for the encounter itself, for the specific person in front of him, for what is actually there rather than for what he needs it to become. This man does not seduce through technique. He seduces through presence, through the specific, genuine, fully developed quality of a man who has built something real inside himself and who brings that real thing into genuine contact with another real human being. That contact, genuine on both sides, is what seduction actually is. Not something done to her. Something built between two people who are both genuinely present. He makes that possible. By being genuinely there. By being genuinely himself. By being genuinely interested in her. And by having built, across the years of genuine development that everything on this channel has been pointing toward, something genuine enough that his presence in her life is an addition to it rather than a demand on it. I want to close with the observation that connects everything I have described today to everything I have written about across this entire channel. I have spent many conversations on this channel describing what a man must build inside himself to produce the qualities that genuine influence and genuine attraction and genuine connection require. Direction, depth, composure, patience, silence, genuine curiosity about other people. The specific qualities of virtue that produce in any room the natural gravity of a man who has done the genuine work of becoming. Every one of those qualities applies directly and specifically to what I have described today as the practice of genuine seduction. The direction gives him the frame he brings into the encounter. The depth gives him the something to reveal in layers. The composure gives him the non-attachment to outcome that makes full presence possible. The patience gives him the capacity to end the encounter at its peak rather than extending it past the point of diminishing return. The silence gives him the economy of expression that makes every word worth something. The genuine curiosity about other people gives him the quality of attention that makes her feel actually seen. None of these things were developed for the purpose of seduction. They were developed because they are worth developing. Because the man who has developed them is more genuinely capable, more genuinely present, more genuinely useful in every domain of his life than the man who has not. The seduction is a consequence, not a goal. The man who develops these qualities for the purpose of seduction will find the development hollow because the development was not genuine. It was performed in service of an outcome rather than built in service of becoming. The man who develops these qualities because they are worth developing, because the becoming is worth the becoming regardless of what it produces, finds that the seduction is simply what happens when a man like that encounters a woman who is open to what he is. Not because he tried to seduce her, because he was genuinely worth being seduced by, and because she could feel that, without him having to do anything to make her feel it, except be what he has built himself to be, which is, in the end, the only thing that genuine seduction has ever required.